How's it going, all you cool cats and commanders? This is Feca with Feca's First Factions, and we're going to be going over kind of like the factions you might choose and really what roles they play in your alliance. This one's going to be doing a lot of more opinion pieces by me. Unlike what you've seen before, I'm going to be reaching a little bit more into the meta and trying to explain a little bit what we're doing. This, by a lot of accounts, may not be the best thing to do, so don't take this for like absolute word, but this is definitely what we're doing. So I figured it was important to kind of spread to you guys. Now, I've been asked this question like over and over and over again, like what exactly am I doing? What should I be doing? First of all, I've said 1,000,001 times, make sure you're joining an alliance and make sure you're coordinating with that alliance. The in-game chat normally isn't enough to have a full communication with the alliance. Make sure you're setting up a Discord or any other kind of like system to kind of talk back and forth to where you guys can communicate really well. Now, when you're doing this, one of the first parts of kind of coordination that you find in Starborne are these factions, and you get them pretty early on, so I imagine most of you guys are at least somewhat familiar with these 6 factions. Now, these 6 factions, these first 3 are the ones that are for free. These ones we each currently in the game will cost about $10. And it's not really a tier system like, oh my god, these premium ones are so much better. They definitely are just different roles, right? When you play a game, you can absolutely get through the game with these 3 factions here. But these 3 kind of offer some other playstyles, and I'll be going through what exactly I mean by that. Now, for starters, the Frontier Legion is your base military, guys. They have these 2 military policies. You can't really see it fully because of my face. The 1 domain and 1 industry, and you'll kind of see this pattern going in between each of these. This might be something you guys are familiar with. This is clearly the domain-focused one, and it's the clearly industrial-focused one. And you can kind of see these have the industrials, right? These have the scouts, which you probably realize are for either sabotaging or probing. And we have some bulky patrols here that are getting a little bit more firepower. Now, before I get into the other factions, I want to kind of jump into how my alliance preps for how we're going to enter a server. Since we've been playing together for a while, we coordinate way ahead of time, in this case is months, but normally probably be weeks or so. What we're going to do when we get to an alliance. So I have this kind of announcement I made, and it kind of feels relevant now. And this is kind of something I threw out at the beginning. And it's a lot of reading, so I'll kind of go through exactly what I meant. We actually have these 6 roles here that we've kind of come up with. And I think it's better if I explain these first, and then we'll go back to what kind of factions and what the factions exactly do for these roles that you're going to try to create. Now, we have recommended amount of numbers of each one we want it. Ignore those for now. That was kind of, we're doing it in Dice and Victory, like we're saying, everyone donates. But what's really important to focus on are these here. Now, in general, you'll start hearing terms like hammer. That's your big attack guy. The one that has the most ships. He's hoarding up labor, and he's just going to be smacking people with ships. You're going to either hear factory, maybe shipyard. Shipyard might be synonymous with donator. Someone that's really focusing on heavy ship assemblies. How can I maximize how many heavy ship assemblies I can have, and how many ships can I get out to give to my hammers who have the extra labor to deal with the ships. And then kind of the sabotage guys. They're hopefully normally doing the same thing about amount of labor. They're kind of tilted off a little bit differently. And the bombers. The bombers have an interesting role. Obviously, the bombing ship, you need an organization to create in the first place. You might be getting help from the shipyard. But bombers are extremely frail too. Ordinarily, we're having people, escort them themselves, or hopefully we're escorting them in alliance. But I just kind of want us to get through what exactly these are. Now, this first one is something that you may not be aware of, and this term, the 3 Gatos hammers. What Gatos is something that lowers your hit points on corvettes and destroyers and ups the amount of firepower. Now, in Starborne, there's 3 rounds of combat. On the first round, you're dealing 100% damage. If anything makes it to the next round, any ships that are half damage, full back up to full health, and then everything attacks again. I think it's about 50% right now. Firepower, you go back down 25% to the 3rd round, and then the fight's over, everyone goes home. Now, the main objective of the Gatos actually is to not live, but instead try to do as much damage as they possibly can in that first round, so they don't care all about hit points. This is done by primarily throwing lights into something that's much bigger to pad down something. Now, I'm going to go back into Starborne, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Gatos hammers and kind of the role they add to our alliance and kind of how to pull them off. Now, Gatos specifically, if you can, Frontier Legion obviously is cool if you're free to play. The military ones here, You're getting a private army here. Corvettes cost 5% less time. Obviously, can't complain about that. The fleet experience is, of course, nice. You're getting into the fight a little bit faster. Territorial, there's a little hidden thing here. Station Harvest, most people don't realize fully, even though it's 50%, Station Harvest, you're only harvesting 40% of nodes around you in the first place. It's not fantastic. If you actually look at your production values, if you go back to the main screen, you hover over here, if I actually had any real harvest, you'll see it's a very low number. So you guys go in there, see, here it's 29, right? It's not going to be a huge number. Now, what it does add is it's adding that extra labor. You're harvesting the labor. Labor isn't something that builds up over time. As you guys have seen, it's a stagnant number. Anytime you get any extra labor, that's helpful. So that is kind of a little bit of a hidden boon to Frontier Legion. It's something to think about. If you're rocking Frontier Legion, you're getting that extra harvest. The harvest is important for more labor. The claim strength, of course, also if you're fighting for NPCs for certain spots, that's always helpful as well. So this is a pretty solid pick if you're going the Gatos, hammers in general. There's not too much benefits, I think, to these two. Obviously, it can be done. And then the third one would be realistically Zayok. They're obviously the Corvette ship is a fantastic card. It actually gets the bonus from Gatos. And we have the resource cost for these. Corvette's 2 speed, 5 cargo. Organized Chaos, you're getting extra firepower and hit points while raiding, which is primarily what you're going to do as the Gatos one, because as you'll see here, we will go to the organization. Did I already pass it? Third one, yep. Gatos Fritos, this is what we mean by it. You're only getting the bonus for rating, which is why it's kind of important for the Zayok. You're really doubling down on Gatos. So I'd say the best way to play Gatos would be Zayok, if you're able to pull it off. This where you see supplied Corvettes get 30 firepower and minus 75 hit points. The same thing for destroyers. So you're really smacking people down. We like to have 2 or 3 of these. As you guys may have seen in my last video, there's these things forward operating bases, FOBs as we call them. The only real way to deal with them, they have 60 operating slots. You can only align slot with 30. Clearly, you're not going to smash into those. Something that we do a lot is pepper them down with Gatos Fritos ships. Now, something else you can do with the Gatos Fritos, while you're already peppering them with this, if you're using all light fleets, if you really want to hop on that Corvette part, if you go to upgrade policies here, go to military, we have this thing, Viva la Resistance. And this is something you'll see people just say Viva, like, oh, Gatos and Viva. Corvette and patrol ship fleet sizes are increased by 13%. Obviously, these numbers are going to go up higher as you level up the fleet. I'm on test server. I just don't have it leveled up. Scout time reduced by 3%. That's okay. This is the big negative and why you really only want to do it if you're Gatos and if you're doing this kind of stuff. Labor cost for heavy and capital ships increased by 300%. So this is mainly if you're going pure Corvettes, there is a way to like really maximize, go Gatos, preferably try to hop into Zayok if you have it. And run Viva la Resistance. Now, with the Plunder also, if you think about this kind of stuff, preemptive demolition is another really solid thing to do, and something we often assign our Gatos players to do, is Plunder now additionally allows you to raid hangared fleets. Now, this is something, especially if you're going up against an alliance that's much bigger than you, much more powerful than you. More than likely, especially if they haven't been fighting a lot, they probably have a bunch of ships in their hangars. They can't fleet them all. You'll hear me keep saying stuff about labor, get as much as you can. It's because we want to get those ships into fleets. When they're not there, they're in hangars. You're also going to get this plus 6% firepower with rating. Can't hurt, because once again, you're rating to get Gatos benefits. So this is huge. This is another big one. You'll see all kinds of really good stuff in the firepower and the military section, but I felt these two are really worth noting as you're potentially being a Gatos player, but also a lot of these things will float into the other hammers, as you'll see. Now we'll go ahead and kind of go to the next one on the list. We're back here. We'll skip bombers for now, just so we'll go through the hammers and we'll come back up to bombers. A traditional hammer, obviously you wouldn't know what traditional means. This is something probably what you're already doing. It's going to be kind of your Swiss Army knife, if you will. You're really focusing on labor, as it's saying here. You're hopefully going to ice belts. And you're the first candidate for, hoarding all the capital ships. Capital ships take an immense amount of labor, especially when you get a bunch of fleets of them. They're the most important ship. But also, you're going to be given a lot of heavy ships. You're going to be saying, hey, I need you to do X, Y, Z. I need you to, be able to maybe escort a bomber by sending some scouts, maybe some decies, maybe some corvettes, maybe some frigates. the big reason this matters is a lot of the other things we try to get really specialized, because you're going to have policies, you're going to have cards, you're going to have gold cards that, you know, particularly relate to one thing or another. And it's really expensive card-wise to constantly fleet out different types of ships. So traditional hammer, if you're, you know, not exactly sure what you want to do, this is fine. You know, picking up a traditional hammer roll, or just a hammer roll. A lot of people just call it. Just smashing as much labor as you can in there, making sure you're picking up a bunch of these military buildings. Obviously, any of these are good. We'll go to, like, you'll see certain buildings I'd say are really worth noting would be here in cadet school. Supplied Corvette patrol ships get extra firepower. Up here, there's one for heavy ships. Supplied destroyer and frigate ships get extra firepower, and I believe there's even some up here. Operating fleets gain firepower and hit points. These are ones only on the station. Where you saw the wording operating here, you saw supplied down here. These are any ones that are labored by this station. This is anyone that is on this station. So these are pretty important, like little keywords to deal with. Factions that are good for a traditional hammer. I think Frontier Legion's fantastic for it. You're going to be able to get a little bit more use out of your extra firepower and your patrols. Once again, we're kind of going to get here with the Sabotage role. So we'll be talking about that. MPL is an interesting candidate for hammer. This is actually probably what I'll end up doing when I do my hammer builds. I own MPL and I love MPL because they get an extra defensive bonus. The hammer players are often the person you call to your rescue as well. Hey, I'm getting attacked. They're the more versatile guy. They may not be tied up in so many different things. You're getting an extra defense bonus on frigates when you're MPL. Now, this may seem big, but you have no military policy slots if you notice here. And that can be a really big deal. If it's really hard to make up for that. You end up using this wildcard slot for a military policy. So that can be really tough. As you notice, all three of these, I didn't really say it before, all are missing one of the different policies. So that can be a big turn off if you're not too certain about one of these three. You're really specializing, and it's why I think they chose these to be the more like the premium factions. It's not that, once again, that they're necessarily better. They're just very different, and they're really specializing you into a certain category. Zeok, of course, is always going to be a really good, attacking faction. So, of course, any of these three here, I think you're in pretty good shape as a hammer player. So we'll go ahead and go downward to Sab Hammer. A lot of people really like Sab Hammers, and there's a little bit more to it. There's really two different types of Sab Hammers. You're keeping things online, you're turning other people's things offline. And something I want to mention about this is how stealth works. You can, I'm not 100% sure if it's still in the version, but basically always be able to fully stealth, turn things offline. Now, things that are very important to turn offline, if you're turning off people's habdomes right before an attack, you could out of labor their fleets. One really big thing is an HSA. A lot of people probably don't realize this at first. If you sabotage a heavy ship assembly, it actually kills the entire shipyard queue that is stacked. So if they have like 100 destroyers waiting here in the shipyard queue, and you sabotage their heavy ship assembly, that thing's cut off. Now, if you can do it in stealth when they're not realizing they can't defend it, you're in even better shape. Now, the other type of sabotage player we have, so we call that one kind of like, we joke about it being like a U-boat captain, or like, someone that's sneaking around, knocking people offline. You're going to be off by yourself a lot. You're probably not going to be checked up on, at least not by me. I'm going to be like, all right, man, you're doing your own thing. We're not going to pull you into our alliance endeavors because you have your own stuff. You're stealthy. In order to get maximum stealth, you're sacrificing a lot of firepower. So that's where we're really losing you there. Now, the other side is stacking as much firepower as you can on these sabotage fleets and just being an absolute sab hammer, being an absolute terror, having a ton of firepower, and it'd be impossible to deal with. This is something that when you have your capital ship assembly or you have your heavy ship assembly set up, you're going to want one of these guys hopefully sitting on you. Or if you see like a really big fortification with a logistics hub, you're going to call this guy in to just smash that and hopefully turn that offline. Turning off missile batteries, you're going to want the sab hammer for these type of different types of things. So we ask, and when we had 15-man alliances, I don't know how many there will be when you guys are watching this. We asked for one of each. That'll normally do the trick. You could definitely pull for some more. We went a little bit hard into factories and other things because we're going through the Dyson Sphere victory. So now I want to get into bombers. These ones, are pretty straightforward, if you can imagine. You're going here for gunships and you're maxing out gunships. There's not really, there's no gunship fleet, unique ship. They're incredibly fragile. You can get away with going a lot of different routes. The main thing is you're buying a lot of cards for bombing. So you're going to be here a lot. You're going to be clicking gunship. You're going to be looking for these. And you're going to be spending a lot here where a lot of other people won't be. And that's the main reason I think we try to specialize you here is you're going to be investing heavily. You need to card your bombers. We see it all the time where people have like a ton of bombers and they're like blue carded, and you're just not doing yourself any service, really not fully loading up your bombers with gold cards. So you're investing a lot into there. Policy, like faction wise, you're okay. I did mean to mention on the Sab Hammer, we didn't come here. The Atlas Syndicate is absolutely fantastic. You're getting these. One thing is a lot of people rely on a pro player. As you can see, the base scan strengths here. At first glance, you might be like, that's whatever. For the Atlas players, they can much easier reach a higher scan level, which means they can constantly see incoming fleets on them and potentially protect themselves and your allies from movements. Now, something else we have these guys do is you max it out. You have them craft cards that give you +3 range and maximum scan ability, and you go pretty much map the entire enemy base and you watch all their movements. Something that aged really well with the Atlas lifestyle here is the Tian Chao. Tian Chao is super interesting because they don't have any real bonus to their industry. You're kind of taking yourself out of that because you're getting so many other bonuses. Now, when you can see where all the fleets are going thanks to your Atlas player, because you're probing your enemy, you're probing his station, you can see everything moving in and out, you get these enhanced spy reports. Now, these enhanced spy reports are going to show you a lot more stuff. They're going to show you, as you can see here, a lot of times cards, who's coming from what. It's a very, very important role. You don't need more than, I would say, 1 or 2 Tian Chao players. That's one thing where it probably wouldn't help you to have like a full alliance of Tian Chao players, but God, at least having 1 or 2 in your alliance, if you can convince someone in your alliance to shell out, just try to get one guy being Tian Chao at least. It's a huge boon to your alliance. Then getting the extra stealth also is helping you reach that stealth threshold, so less and less people are able to, find you out. Pairing these two is really, really helpful, and it's going to be your main Sab players. Bombing again, you can be fine. I mean, some players need to be Terran Combines. You need them throughout the game to augment, so it's probably a good chance to find your Terran Combine players. You're going to need to escort your bombers, so always having Frontier Legion to kind of be there. Sabotaging for yourself. If you can sabotage your own missile batteries and then bomb afterwards, that's a huge help to players. A lot of bomber players do different things. The meta for exactly how bomber players has been shaky. I've seen a lot of different things. That's kind of where you are with that. Now, those are all like the hammer rolls specifically. What I want to go through now are these are 2 of my favorite roles. And it actually seemed when we made people, we asked people to pick, as you can see down here, is we actually had a lot of people that wanted to come be Factory and Shipyard. Now, Factory, these guys are the guys that are pumping out as many resources as possible, and they're specifically leading the charge in building the Alliance Station and building the FOB. As you guys saw in my previous video, it takes a lot of resources, and that's just to build it. Now, for the actual buildings, it just takes millions and millions of resources. You're going to be pumping all day. You're going to need dedicated players. You're going to need everyone to be donating to these. But it helps a lot to have people that are just completely dedicated, that are streaming a lot. That's incredibly helpful to be streaming constantly. And the factions for these would be MPL, of course, because they have the extra trading ports. They have the extra 25%. Terran Bros are awesome as well. They're hanging in there, just having the extra industrialists to put up stuff. And once again, augmenting, having the 2 industrial policies is fantastic. You can get away. Probably Frontier Legion, the Harvest isn't fantastic, but if you want to be kind of like a little bit more, in the middle, I could recommend that as well. So that's the Factory. Oh, shoot, sorry. And then the last one here on the list would be Shipyard. Now with Shipyard, this was my like favorite one. This is the one I played in tournament. Your entire role, your entire reason to live is to donate ships to these hammers. And it may not seem glorious at first, but it's the most helpful role you can have. Having people dedicated to refleeting after big lost battles, just putting out more heavy ships, really having a focus on these heavy ship assemblies because heavy ships are just fantastic. It is a huge boon to the economy. These guys can also kind of rotate. They're focusing a lot on industry as well because it takes a lot to fuel these things. So having them be kind of a mixture. These are both kind of the industrial ones. Once again, that it's kind of the same idea. Frontier Legion gets a little bit better just because the 5% less time. I wouldn't lose sleep over it if you don't have it. It's still good. You may not be primarily focused on corvettes and patrols anyways. There's not much here that helps you build heavy ships. Terran, Frontier Legion, and MPL again are quite strong. The more industrial policies you can get, the more you can pull off with it as well. There's definitely no doing wrong in that. Now, I wanted to show... We'll show here. So this is what we did. For Gravity, we really require everyone to pick a role. If we don't end up, say, if we never got 3 Gatos hammers, right? We never force anyone to be like, no, we need someone to be Gatos hammers. We do generally like, all right, we'll work with what we got. We want everyone to have fun still. It's not going to ruin the game if we don't have 3, right? These are all just random opinions of ours. We just, it'd be nice to have this. As you see, we had mostly people that said, shrug, I'm down for anything. And you'll probably find that. People like direction in general. If you're an alliance leader out there, just throw it out there. I'm not forcing anyone to do it, but here's some roles to do. Now, if you're not serious enough to be like, oh, I want everything, these are some recommended roles that maybe if you're playing by yourself, you might want to pick up one of these, or if you get some kind of experience in these are awesome things to pick up. So, Gatos hammers, as we said, absolutely fantastic. Bombers and sab hammers, these 3 just... If I could just pick up a random guy and they had, the ideas like, oh, I've been building for this the whole time. I've been building buildings that, are really helpful for sabotaging. Like, I have so much labor, yada, yada, yada. It would be fantastic. And we summarize them into these 3 keywords. Like, as a new player, what do you like to do? And then just follow out with this, right? So we got Gatos Hammer, raid. You're going to be raiding a ton. You're going to be raiding the enemy. You're going to be raiding to get a bunch of your resources, etc. Bombers, do you like to destroy? Can you build these orbital symphonicas to build more bombers? Destroy. You're going to be blowing up people. You're going to be kicking people out of the game. Ideally, if you like that kind of stuff, go bomber and then sab hammers. It's awesome to be able to sabotage people, be able to take people offline. And if you can pair some of these people up, if you can even get a few of these going in your alliance, I think most people in general will do factory. People are willing to donate. Oh, I have some extra scouts. Those aren't as necessary. Getting these 3 going, getting some teamwork, hitting in, sabotaging them, clearing them out with the Gatos hammer, and then bombing someone like a 1-2-3 punch. It's fantastic, and I recommend trying to at least push your alliance like just into that direction. Hey, can we do this? And then of course everyone has fun. Make sure everyone's liking it. Don't force it down anyone's throat. Like I'm saying, once again, these are all opinions. These are all just things that we've picked up playing probably the last 3 servers. I think we've used like this role system. It's worked really well for us. We've been extremely successful with it. And I kind of just wanted to share, what faction should you choose? What should you be doing? What do the factions really mean to us? Now, there was something really cool that Snuggum shared on the Discord that I like to see a lot. And this was kind of like S1 Day 6, seeing what type of factions people are. And this is where I think this is an eye-opener to a lot of veterans, too, of just how few people are actually playing with the premium ones. And the people that get really hung up on, oh my god, this game's pay to win, yada, yada, yada. By looking at this, you can really see that a majority of the players aren't even using these, let alone would they even be an advantage. I don't think so. MPL, I started MPL. I was like, I think that's pretty cool. Terran Combine is just a beast early game. I absolutely love Terran Combine. Obviously, everyone else does, too, as you can see. The faction distribution for all the servers, factions over 51%. Starting out as Terran Combines, absolutely great. Another little like pro tip: a lot of people higher up, they're gonna immediately switch from Terran Combine. They're gonna start out that probably get the extra outpost stuff. Immediately switch from Terran Combine and go here to Atlas for the reduced cost for organizations and the time cost. Time cost and resource cost is tremendous. You fly ahead. Organizations are the best way to gain influence, and you'll see that over and over again. So a lot of them will switch. They'll go Terran, they'll get a clean slate, they'll go Atlas, and then they'll kind of go to where they want. I don't necessarily recommend this. It's pretty stressful unless you're an absolute, like, you really want to do it or you're super min-maxer. I don't know how I feel about it entirely. I might even start as Atlas. I like the extra missions and then maybe move to something once I have enough orgs up. But that's something definitely to think about too that goes without saying. It should just be known. That is a huge boon to your economy if you can pull that off. So this is kind of the base idea of all these factions. Once again, we've just gotten tons of questions about how to do this, how to do that, what should I be doing, what role should I be having. So thanks for watching, guys. Go ahead, join the official Discord if you haven't. That's where I got the Sniggums message from. Check out Reddit if you haven't. Go ahead, spread content. Take it easy, guys.